Sup? Welcome to the unofficial Tedeschi Trucks podcast. This is episode number 94, and I am Adam Choi. To follow this show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram and on YouTube. Just search Tedeschi Trucks Podcast, and if you're watching, you are there already. Please be sure to subscribe and give the show likes and shares. I definitely appreciate that for sure. And please be sure to subscribe as well on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Adam Choi if you want to follow me. And I also wanted to share with you guys a short film that I wrote and directed that is now available on YouTube for free. It is also embedded at the film's official website. It is a dystopian psychological satire. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you check it out, please do. TheEditedMovie.com. That's TheEditedMovie.com. I definitely am grateful for all the support on that front too. But for today's episode of this podcast, we have a great one with Macon, Georgia's own guitar player and audio engineer, Adam Gorman. These days, Adam plays with End of the Line, an excellent Allman Brothers tribute band, but before then, he recalls growing up drenched in ABB's music. We talk Allmans, we talk Tedeschi Trucks Band, and Adam tells me all about the honor it was for him to perform at both Gregg Allman's memorial at the Big House Museum and also the memorial of Gregg's friend and right-hand man, and much more than that, Hewell, Chank, Middleton. That was more recently. I am sorry for your loss and sorry for everyone who was connected and friendly and friends and family of Chank as well. But this was a special episode, and I appreciate all the stories and guitar talk and beyond. So let's just get started. Here's Adam Gorman. Okay, so it's good to see you today, Adam Gorman. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, for sure. How are you holding up during whatever year this is?
Oh my God, it's hard to tell. I think it's 2022. Am I
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
Eh, Holding up pretty well. Staying busy, playing as much music as I can. Living in Nashville at the time, but I'm down here in Macon at the moment, getting ready to play a show. So life's pretty good.
So you live in Nashville, but you're in Macon right now.
Yep. I'm from Macon originally. I grew up down here, but I moved up to Nashville about 8, 9 years ago. So
Right, you're the only person in your band that is from Macon, from what I gather. End of the Line, the Allman Brothers tribute band that you're in.
for sure. So we've got two Georgians, but one Maconite, and I'm the one from Macon. Our percussionist Ryan McClanahan is from Atlanta, um, but I'm the only one from the city.
Yeah, we're gonna get into it. And I want to go back to your childhood and all that. But does it make it more special, like playing this Allman Brothers music and diving into it, being from Macon? Do you feel a deeper connection, or is it more just a cool coincidence?
It's it's hard to describe. It's something that I grew up with. Like as long as I can remember listening to music, the Allman Brothers were always around. So being from Macon, it's an awesome well to drink from. Just the influences that are still here that you can go visit on a daily basis, whether it be the Allmans at the Big House or, Otis at Capricorn. It's like that, those influences and those legacies are still alive here, which is cool.
Super cool. Of course, not of course, but I should say that I don't know if you're aware. I was there for the first time at those two places you were describing over the summer in July, and it was just super amazing. Such a super special trip. It was actually with my father who flew in from New York. I'm in LA,
Oh,
and
no
we met
kidding.
and we met there for both of our first times being there, and saw TTB at the Fox both nights.
Oh
At
man,
at that time, that was just a super fun
I
trip
can
for sure.
only imagine. You said you got to go to Capricorn?
Yes, we got like a whole private tour essentially of all this little studios and spaces and explanations. It was amazing. You saw the whole control room and the soundboard and all
Such a
that.
cool place.
Yeah, definitely special places for sure. And I think that was a better transition segue than I thought it would be as you were diving into Macon and your childhood a little bit. So why don't you get into your background and even like your earliest musical memories, like growing
Oh,
up,
man.
elementary school or even younger. What songs do you remember playing? Like where was tell me about the music in your life even from that early of an age if you remember.
Oh man. It started with my folks, my mom and dad. Neither one of them really played instruments, but they always had an awesome CD and record collection. The things that come to mind, like my dad was He liked everything, anything that sounded good, but, I mean, he loved Ozzy Osbourne, Pink Floyd, Van Halen. Those were the earliest, artists I remember him showing me, and then my mom loved Eric Clapton, Rod Stewart, people like that. But the Allmans, being from Macon, that was something both my mom and dad, it was always around the house. So, um, I think that was probably the beginning of me noticing music was just them constantly playing CDs. The guitar didn't come until I was about 13 or 14, but I definitely knew there was something going on. They always had something playing.
That's funny. I could tell that you're a little skew a little bit younger than me and your parents, just based on their influences. And is your mom a little bit older than your dad, or are those
She is. She's a little bit older than he is, and it's funny. He definitely was into kind of the heavier stuff, and she kind of grew up on more classics, so there was a neat balance there.
and the Allman Brothers is kind of it fits in between and covers both of those as well in a lot of ways there. I mean, to say that they don't go deep into heavier things, I think would be not true.
Oh, you absolutely you couldn't say it's and maybe so. I don't know if my parents really got into the jammier aspect of it. They were very much, strict studio Fillmore East, Eat a Peach stuff, but I think it definitely played into it for sure.
Yeah. No, though I mean, someone was describing I think it was Alan Paul actually was describing the Allman Brothers as like obviously they're not like a heavy metal band or even maybe not even a hard rock band, but when they hit the stage, especially, or really any of their eras, when they hit the stage, it was just like one, two, three, four, here we go, just like very high energy, like borderline, like kind of like heavy metal energy in some regard, that very a lot of intensity.
Just pure wall of sound, just wall of air coming at you. I totally feel that.
So you grew up in Macon. Did you have brothers and sisters? You said.
I do. I have one younger sister. She is 21 years old, and she's in college in South Georgia right now. She doesn't play any music, but she definitely keeps my artist rotation going. She's always sending me new stuff.
So your family just loved to listen to music. They were that was kind of like, they didn't play, you said, no one sang, no one was musically inclined other than just like being big time fans and being drenched in Allman Brothers lore in the area.
That was really it. My dad, I think it was really something that he tried to impress on me. He's like, man, there's nothing that really is bad music, but if you can feel it, if it makes you feel something, that means it's good. You don't have to feel something with everything you listen to, but if it makes you feel something, if it brings something out of you, it's like there's something for everybody there.
That's such a profound but simple thing and important thing for, I think, a parent to say to a kid, and something that could be overlooked or is not or ignored or isn't focused on enough. Like just the power of music, and obviously it's an important thing in a kid, any child's development in like so many ways. Just like I don't know. I could go on and on about the importance of music, but that's so cool. And I'm guessing that you were probably quite similar to a lot of people in your town and kids your age. And obviously, all kids have different tastes and stuff, but like it just sounds like that's such a quintessential like Macon, Georgia music fan thing you're describing. Like it would have been maybe what I would have guessed with before interviewing if I had thought about it.
Well, and it's I don't know. My mom and dad didn't listen to the brothers as much as I dove into them. They showed me Fillmore East, and they showed me Eat a Peach and stuff like that, and that was what they listened to. But I remember the addiction, I guess you could call it, finally grew. They got me a DVD. I think it was Peeking at the Beacon. It was one of the first live shows with Derek and Warren, and I remember I put that on as I was going to sleep religiously each night, and that was one of the first pieces of like kind of the jammier brothers side that I got to see, and kind of change the way I looked at music, which was, my parents knew it because it was Allman Brothers, and they went, oh, he'll like this, but it was different than the Allman Brothers that they grew up with. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
And in some ways, maybe that felt like more your own thing in some way. That's kind of how I feel about TTB, just kind of pretty much following them since like their inception. As I wasn't hardcore or even around for much of obviously the Allman Brothers and run and whatnot.
Mm.
Very, very, very cool. So what age were you when you kind of went through this when you were diving into this, listening at night, sleeping, going to bed and all that?
Probably I probably started doing that when I was 13, 14. Was when I would start doing, DVDs at night. I would just put on like the Clapton guitar festivals, like I think there was one in 2014 that was done in Dallas, or that Peeking at the Beacon DVD or something like that. It was almost a religious thing in the sense of, that was what you listened to when you went to sleep every night. You kind of ate, slept, and breathed that music. I don't know, it changed something in me.
It sounds like it, for sure. And this is right around the same time you said you started playing guitar, or did you start playing a little bit before then?
About the same time I started playing, yeah.
About the same time. So were you learning these songs on guitar at this point, or were you just kind of like it was an addiction, it was comfort food, it was more like the listening aspect, and the guitar was coming along slowly? How did those kind of two things feed into each other?
I think they were kind of coexistent there. I think once I started really taking lessons and sort of learning kind of the language that music is, because there's so much improv in it. There's so much room to kind of express different ideas and play different melodies. It's I feel like once it reached that point, that was when the keys to the keys to the vehicle were finally handed to me, in a sense, where it was like, okay, cool. It's not just listening and going, okay, that's cool. It's going, oh, wait, I can do that. And then, kind of changing it up and playing with different melodies and stuff like that and going, okay, they're not playing the same thing every time. They're, expressing different ideas. They're changing melodies around. So it was more of a language and less of a part, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like the way I kind of describe this, it's like you may not be able to play exactly what they play, and they're playing different things all the time anyway, but you're capturing the spirit, I feel like, and you're learning the the main the I guess maybe main licks or something, the main riffs and the main parts and the keys and the chords and all those types of things. The essence
Kind
of
kind
these
of the
these
the the
songs.
melodies and the callbacks there are like, if
Right.
you look at a song like Liz Reed, there's the lick to bring it into the solo bit, and there's the lick to bring it out, and all in between there is no man's land.
I should sit down and really I mean, I'm not like you, but I play for fun and whatnot. I should sit down and really, like, Google, YouTube a lesson on Liz Reed, and you won't see me for, like, the next god knows how long. I'll just be in my bunker just
There's
playing
an
the same
there's an
simple
awesome one of Dwayne Betts and Dickie Betts. I think it was from a Guitar World in like 2009 on YouTube. It's one of my favorite videos. It's so cool watching him dissect it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I kinda wanna dive a little bit into the guitar, inside baseball, nerdy stuff, but, like, something I wonder is, like, how long does it take to, like, get good? Like, when you first start, what did you learn? Like, what makes a good teacher? Like, I'm always curious about people's, like, very early days playing guitar, because everyone must struggle to some degree, I guess, besides some virtuosos. But, like, tell me about, like, the early days playing guitar, because a lot of people don't last.
It's I man, it's You said, how long does it take to get good? I will never have the answer to that.
Right.
Always learning. Um, but I think about the time I started taking lessons when I was 16, and I started taking lessons from a guy. There was a band out of Capricorn Studios in the 70s, or I think it was the late 80s, called Stillwater. And it was the band that the movie was based off of, Almost Famous. They had, gone on the road with the Allman Brothers, but they had stolen the name Stillwater from this band. And their lead guitar player was my first guitar teacher, is a guy named Mike Causey. Incredible guitar player. Um, and I remember there being kind of a key moment when I really started to sit down and take lessons. I think it was maybe about 6 or 7 months in, and we had started dissecting different solos to songs. I think we had started with something really simple. It was a Leonard Skinner song called Simple Man, just a really basic solo with a lot of bends, a lot of, different pull-offs and things like that, but a really great solo that just you learn so many different vocabulary things from learning that solo
Oh,
note
I
for
want to
note.
go try that right now.
And then I remember we learned it note for note, and then he went, "Okay, so all of the things that you just did, remember your pentatonic scale, and I'm going to play these chords over and over again for an hour, and you're going to sit here and have fun. Just play anything that you feel. If you want to try something, try it. If it doesn't sound good, that's okay." And I remember there being that moment of, "Oh wow, okay. So as long as I'm sort of playing around, these field lines, this is experimental, it's fun." And I don't know if that was the moment that you would describe as getting good or the moment where it all made sense. But I think through taking lessons and through having that moment of going, back to the thing of, okay, wow, there's so much I can do.
It's almost like learning like the theory and the frettings of like the pentatonic scale, but you can combine that with the melodicness, the musicality of a Simple Man solo. Like and those two, is it like those two ideas kind of combining the technical thing and the pattern scale pattern, but also like seeing how that applies to actual music and musicality? Was that kind of like what
Well,
clicked for
and
you in a
and then
sense?
seeing, when you went to learn the next solo. I mean, and this is, taking lessons for after taking lessons for about 9 months, but then it's like, okay, the lick that you learned in the Simple Man solo also applies to these 3 solos. These guitar players use the same lick right here. So, it's going to take you half as much time to learn that solo note for note, but then you have all of these new vocabulary phrases to use. And that was the moment where it kind of started to pick up and went, okay, wow, so this is kind of the language and, the same verbiage that everybody's speaking, but you can kind of use your own phrasing and have your own impression of it. And it's almost just like getting that many more colors on your palette.
Right. Such a cool thing. Well, tell me more about like your musical journey and your playing, like going into I guess high school. What were you up to? I mean, maybe color in some of your
Oh
life.
God, no
Were
good.
you were you were you a terrible student? Were you just focused on music and cutting school? Like what was life like in high school for you?
Oh God, I was that music nerd. I would skip lunch and go hang out in the auditorium and play guitar. Um,
That's
I
in every rock star's rock and roll musician's biography, I think, isn't
I
it?
I cannot confirm or deny that, but that is definitely the truth. I have the lunch trays and the pictures to prove it.
I believe you.
But doing that a lot in high school, playing in the jazz band. I remember I joined that junior year, and that was really cool. Learning so much new music. I got really into Chicago at that point. Um, I was really just kind of head to the grindstone in high school when it came to music. I was out playing most weekends. I had a little band that I was in. It was funny. It was called Soulshine. We were an Allman Brothers tribute when I was 15 years old. And we kind of did the little college circuit every Friday and Saturday of each weekend. My dad would pick me up from school on Friday. We would drive home, pack up the truck, and then go play, University of Georgia or Statesboro, and then come back to Macon and wake up and go to school again on Monday after, trying to recover on a Sunday. Um, and I did that most of my high school career. After that, I graduated and I went up to Boston to Berklee School of Music for a summer and did a summer program up there and met a lot of awesome people. I cannot say enough good things about Berklee School of Music. It's such a great place.
So it seems like you're on a track to be a musician, be in the music industry. You're not this is kind of like your path, and it seems like you kind of knew this for quite some time in your teens, like where you were going at least.
It was a bug for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was an exact moment where it pinged for me, but I think I don't know. I just felt like one moment I woke up one day and was like, if I don't end up playing music, if I can end up somewhere around the magic, whether it be guitar teching or, helping record or learning, any of that, I'm gonna be happy at the end of the day.
Those must have been such special shows. The high school like It's so cool, like, you're younger than these college kids, but you're out there, like, in front of them, and you're up on the stage playing this music that I'm sure, like, everyone in the area loves, really of all ages, like, you know?
What was debauchery? There were places a 15-year-old should have never been.
That's what I was guessing, but you know what? I didn't really ask you much about it because I feel like Derek kinda, like, went through a similar thing, so it's like, you know, I feel like you carry yourself with at least, you know, some level of maturity where you're able to handle that. Like you know, Alan Paul was actually also talking about how Derek, like, there was no doubt that he, as a kid, can handle just like being around these like seedy bars and stuff. It wasn't a problem, like, at all. Like,
I'll never forget my dad when I guess I was, yeah, I was 15. It was the first time I had ever been asked to come jam at Grant's Lounge. We had a friend of mine who was he's probably 55, 60. He played drums. He had asked me to come out and jam, and my dad was like, "Okay, I'll take you to Grant's, but I'm going with you." And I said, "Okay, fine." So we pull up to the back door, and I remember he walked up to the back door and saw a piece of trash on the ground. And at the time, I had no clue what it was, but he grabbed me by the arm and he said, we're leaving." And he turned me around, and it was because there was a joint on the ground.
no, I expected worse.
I expected worse too, and I was like, "Man, really?" He was like, "I didn't know what to do. You were 15." I was like, "It was coming." You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, I thought maybe like a needle or something. I was taking it to a darker place in my head.
my my parents, they showed me a lot of cool music, but they were also really kind of trying to shield the kid from as much as they could.
Yeah, I'm guessing they failed in some regard.
I wouldn't call it a failure. They
No,
did the
but I
best
mean,
they
I mean,
could.
yeah. No, I don't mean failure in in a negative way. I mean, I don't know.
I know exactly what you meant.
Yeah, I got
It's
you.
Mama tried.
What year was Berkeley for you? How old were you at that point?
I was 18, and that was summer of 2014 was when I was up
Okay,
there.
I want to kind of like clarify your Derek TTB Susan timeline because you mentioned discovering the DVD, the Beacon DVD with Derek and whatnot. When did you? I mean, you were into the Allman Brothers like your whole life, so you must have known him, and you're in living in the South, like you must have. Did you know? Must have known about Derek pretty much all your life, maybe. I don't know. When did you discover Derek and his music?
For me, the first time, and I knew Derek through the Allman Brothers. The first time I ever got to hear him play live, the brothers did a warm-up show, and I wanna say it was I wanna say it was '09 before Jazz Fest. It was the last time they played in Macon. I'd have to double check my dates on that. I'm sure I'm wrong there. But they did a warm up gig, and I remember that Derek had broken his leg before the show playing basketball with his brother Dwayne, and they had almost canceled the show, but they said no, we're gonna go ahead with it. And I had always, seen Derek playing through like YouTube videos and things like that, but that was hearing him the first time live that night, and it was an absolute slap in the face when it came to realizing what improving was on stage, witnessing what Warren and him did, pre-recorded, seeing that, and then watching them actually communicate on stage dynamically. It's like and I don't know if it was, I don't know if it's just the compression of what you see on the DVD, but it's almost that telekinetic thing that you see in a lot of bands or in between two guitar players, that they're famous for. It was like there was a whole bunch of talking without saying a word and communicating where they were going in certain parts of songs. And I think that was especially apparent when they had Jack Pearson sit in because that was a free for all. Three guitar players on Liz Reed. It was mind blowing to see that, and I think that's when I really went, oh my god, holy shit, Derek Trucks.
I kind of want to dig up a bootleg or something, see if I could hunt that down. Macon '09.
Please let me, and if we're not live, I'm going to Google it right now. It is a hell of a set list.
Yeah, I believe you. So that was your first show. Did you know about Derek Trucks Band or know of like any of the other stuff? Or is that kind of like right around when you discovered Derek was
It was right
around?
about that time.
Right.
I saw him live with the Allmans, and I want to say it was after the Allmans, but I also saw him on his Already Free tour. Um, when it was DTB, they played at a small ball field in Macon. It was like a minor league ball field, and it was 34 degrees outside.
Wow.
Um, but it was one of the best DTB shows I've ever heard in my life.
And when was that? If a few years earlier
I
than
think it
the
was about a few years earlier. I might be wrong on my timeline there.
where were you? Do you remember where you were standing or seated at any of these shows? Like, because that can have a profound impact as well if you're in the very front or something and you're looking straight up at Warren and Derek.
And I just found the Macon show. It was April 23rd of 2010. So I was a year off there. For that show, I was about 13 rows back from the stage. Um, for the Derek show, I was up in nosebleeds. I was
Yeah.
comparatively speaking in the ball field.
Very, very cool. And okay, so you discovered DTB and Allman Brothers, and you're playing, and you're a teen, and you're and what where do we go after or Berkeley or when did you discover TTB? We'll kind of like I'll kind of let you fill in some of those timelines.
No, for sure. So I was listening to DT, or I was listening to TTB, sort of at the beginnings there with Revelator and that first live record that they had put out. Um, Midnight in Harlem was, it. I remember when that came out in Macon. It's like you couldn't go anywhere without hearing it. It was such a hit, and I remember, there was such a sense of pride in the city, playing that song. It was so cool to see that, you know and even more less so with Derek not being from Macon, but just the spirit of that music. I feel like there's a spirit in a lot of these bands that sort of travels along the family of bands that bloom out of them. And then there was a really cool sense of pride and a sense of beauty hearing those records for the first time, especially being, a young guy in Macon. Um, there was somebody out there doing it. There was a young guitar player out there pushing boundaries and making new music that was listenable but popular.
That's so cool that because I wasn't really aware of that or didn't really think about like, oh, when TTB came out, what did the Allman Brothers world and Macon, what did they think about? How did they react to TTB? Because there might be some like skepticism or lack of interest or it might take time for a new band and Derek's new project, so to speak, to grow on people. It seemed like right away that there was this instant connection. And Midnight in Harlem is definitely a song and a moment, and I on not just on the Everybody's Talking album, but also on the Clapton Crossroads they played
hmm
Midnight in Harlem one of those years. So that's like people's like I'm sold conversion points, discovery of Derek Susan TTB. So those are like profound benchmarks and turning points for a lot of people for sure. But it's cool to hear that people really dig in TTB right away in your part of your neck of the woods.
It was a big thing to hear those records come out, and because and I don't want to speak out of turn for the city of Macon here, but I feel like, as a kid growing up there, in the early 2000s and, a little bit in the late 90s, there was a bit of a dry spell. It's, before that period, you heard stories about how Government Mule was playing down the street at Liz Reed's right on Cherry, or, Widespread Panic would play at all these bars in downtown. And, into the late 90s and early 2000s, you know, it seemed like it had kind of dried up, and, music wasn't supported as much. So there almost seemed to be this weird sort of revival to the city of Macon with this, coming out of these family artists. They're not the Allman Brothers, but related to. It was like people were ready to hear new music again, which
Yeah,
was
directly it's funny 'cause
huge.
almost forget about, Butch sometimes and his literal relation to Derek. It's not just like that Derek himself was in the Allman Brothers. There's that deeper connection, which is so cool, which is also, I'm sure, a big part of the pride that, people feel in Macon towards TTB. Um Cool. So Revelator was 2010. This so and you were in college, you were in high school at this point.
I was in high school at that point, 2010,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
for sure. And
And Yeah, go on. Just yeah, tell me about your musical journey and your TTB memories, other shows. I mean, I'll kind of let you steer things, and maybe I'll jump in.
No, for sure. God, I don't even know where to go from there, really. I remember a huge point was when Made Up Mind came out for me. That was probably my favorite TTB record, just looking back. I remember hearing "Do I Look Worried" for the first time, and just that, and I don't know why, that track off the record, but that just blew me away. And then I remember going to, I think it was the first live show I had heard of them since that album had come out. And they had just come up with this arrangement for the ending of "Do I Look Worried," where it's the classic Beatles, stop, the "She's So Heavy," ba da ba da ba da da, and they just cut everything and blacked out the lights. And I remember it was almost a moment of, oh my gosh, this is what a live show is. This is what a live show should be. It's not only the production value of it, but just the instrumentation, which I don't know, it was new.
Yeah, so cool and so well said. And I hear you like complimenting the band, the song. It sounded like a perfectly like an audio clip, a social media clip that you just like articulated about the band. That's like perfect. And I say that that's one of like a quintessential one of TTB's signature songs. So for that song to have a profound impact on you is not surprising at all. And
Mm.
it's a song that I think that I would have to check setlist.org.com or whatever, but I think it's maybe one of the most played live songs, performed live songs by the band, certainly. Like
Oh, no
seem
kidding.
to carry through all their different tours through their as new albums have come out since and new projects. They seem to always have that like in their set list and not gone for more than really a night or two. I feel like
It's a powerful piece of
I think
music.
it's one of their favorite songs, and it's even more impressive in a way that the studio version is it sounds like it's what grabbed you. And I love all their studio music too, of course. But obviously, TTB is a band that takes things to the next level live. And I describe that song as I do others, but like a real showstopper song. It's just very emotional, really, in a lot of ways, so powerful. Like when Susan belts out those notes, and there's those little breaks where there's no other instruments playing and there's silence, but she's like, you know, belting out some passionate note or something. It's just like it's very stirring to say the
That
least.
ending, I don't know, it relit something for me, like wanting to make live music and pursue live music. That was another one of those live moments that definitely changed me.
That's so
Um,
crazy that it's just like this not a song, not a whole show, and obviously the song and the whole show was had an impact too. But the fact that these moments are so memorable and jump out at us, and they're like very specific turning points or impact points or however you want to describe it. That's just fascinating and just like really illustrates the power of music.
or even just the power of that band. I think they're
Yes,
really just kind of the heavyweight champions of that, just making you go, "Wow. Oh, okay. Wow." And I don't have the words for it.
I've never heard anyone go to a show and not like it or appreciate the musicianship or I mean have a negative thing to say about either of those, about the music itself. And it's unheard of.
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure. Okay, and what about after that? So so you've gone to a couple of TTB show or two over the years, like in the 2010, 20 to 15 era.
I got spoiled, when I got to college, around 2014, 2015. I was going to school at Belmont University after Berkeley in Nashville, um, and it was right down the street from the Ryman. I got spoiled rotten. I would go every chance I could, any of the runs that they did. Um, when I had just moved to Nashville, I was taking lessons from Jack Pearson for a little bit, and I would go watch Jack sit in with them, and just it to this day is still my favorite live band to see. The Ryman is a fantastic stage, but just that's the band to go see on that stage. Anytime
Oh, that's
somebody
so
asks
cool.
me, they're like, "Who do I need to go see there?" It's go see Susan and Derek.
That's so cool. And Connor Kelly, your bandmate, is he your bandmate in and what's the name of your band again? I'm
The
sorry.
end of the line,
The
yeah,
end of the
I met
right.
Connor my first year up there in Nashville. I guess that was, yeah, 2015. We met at Belmont. He had a band called Waker at the time.
Right, and he recommended I talk to you, and I appreciate him as I appreciate, you and your time for sure, and, yeah, go on.
He's a good man. He's a good man. Somebody's gotta give him a hard time. He's a good man, though. Um,
For sure.
but, I met him that first year at Belmont. I went out and saw Waker. They were playing a battle of the bands out on the front lawn of the school, and Connor was playing a left-handed SG. And I went, "Oh, that's cool." So I walked up and I was watching him play, and I saw him reach up to his amp and he grabbed a Corsidon bottle off the top of it. And I went, "Okay, yeah, I've got to talk to this guy. This guy's definitely cool." And he started playing slide, um, and ever since, man, I've been trying to keep up with that guy.
Yeah, and he took lessons, I think, as well from Jack Pearson, if I recall.
He did. We both took lessons from Jack for a little bit, which is kind of fun.
And
Um,
that's so awesome.
it was it was a heck of a time, man. Jack is a heavy teacher. He's one of those guys, and I was not used to it when I went and saw him, but he's one of those guitar teachers where it's not like he'll give you a lesson and go, "Okay, come back in a week and show me show me that you got it." He would drop these knowledge bombs on you that you could go home and work on for 4 years and never be able to come back and show him that you've accomplished anything. Like, I think I asked him, I said, "Jack, when you're soloing, do you think about soloing in, like, modes, or are you thinking scales, or, how do you go about it?" And he said, "I know every chord inversion up the neck, so I'm playing all of my solos off of inversions." He's like, "If you go home and learn all of your chord inversions," he's like, "you'll never have a problem playing a solo ever again." And I remember that being that one of those things that you could take that for 30 years and come back, and you'd
Right.
never be able to show Jack Pearson you learned.
Right. Right. Yeah. But that is something you can actually go work on, something tangible that this man is telling you that like will make you a better player. And it definitely would and will, and I'm sure has like
Oh, definitely.
digging into all that stuff.
It's one of those knowledge bombs that I will still be chipping away at until I'm in my 60s.
Yeah, I've dug up some of those Jack Pearson with TTB videos on YouTube. They did like a did they've done Blue Sky thing together. I don't know if that was those were Ryman shows, and any day I think they've done together some really cool verses. Maybe it was a Blue Sky tease on any day. Is that what I'm thinking of?
Ooh, it
Or
might have
any day
been.
on Blue Sky. I don't know.
There's a really cool Liz Reed from the I'm trying to remember the name of the theater in Chattanooga. It was maybe from about 3 years ago. If you've never listened to it, go check it out. It is
I'm I'm
blistering.
I'm sure I have, but I'm gonna. It's funny. I'm about to like write down and take a note. We're recording this, so I don't need to actually do that. That's what happens when I edit and go back and listen to these things. Somebody will on the podcast will say, "This version was so cool," blah blah blah. Then I'll listen to like a 25-minute version of Elizabeth Reed, like getting totally sidetracked, but in the most fantastic way possible. Of course.
Best distraction in the world.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so tell me more about you know where we were. Where are we? 2015. You saw TTB at the Ryman a bunch of times. Did you
Oh,
have
yeah.
any personal correspondence interaction with Derek Susan, the band, at all at this point?
They had been really, really sweet at that point, man. I'd met Derek and Susan maybe once or twice. And it was through a mutual friend in Macon, a guy named Bob Johnson. I just met him after the show a couple of times, and there was nothing really much to the interaction. Just, "Hey, I'm a kid that really enjoys what you do. Thank you for doing it." But they were always super sweet and genuine, man. Me and my dad would go to shows a lot. Um, Growing up and even into college, when he would come visit me, we would go to shows. So a lot of times Susan and Derek would remember us too, coming to shows, and they were always super cool because I know Derek is super close with his dad. So I think that was kind of common ground there.
Yeah, yeah, I think Derek appreciates like fathers and sons, and he appreciates people who wear Kofi t-shirts. Those are things I'm learning about Derek for sure. Damn, so it sounds like you've been to a handful. if not more, TTB shows over the years.
It was I think I counted the other day, and I've seen them now probably about 16 times. And go every chance I can get, man.
So cool. What was the last show you went to?
The last show the last show was on their previous Ryman run. I think I had a friend of mine, a lighting director in Nashville. His name was Clay Maddox. He donated a ticket to me last second and said, "Man, you're having a night. Go have fun." And I just went by myself. And I think there was a Bell Bottom Blues and there was an Any Day in the set that night. So definitely worth the evening.
Yeah, for sure. You going this time? You're gonna cross that bridge or see what you know.
We're gonna see. I'm hoping so. Our end of the line is staying pretty busy right now, so I think we're out. The What nights are they playing again?
No, I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, no, I figured it was more about can you go, not so much do you want to go.
It's definitely it. We End of the line has gotten busy in October and November, so I'm a little bit limited on what I can go enjoy at the moment. But
Yeah, tell me about end of the line. How's that for a segue transition?
oh man, end of the line's good. So we started playing together, I guess, about 5 years ago after I had met Connor. Um, we'd kind of gone through a period where we were just friends and, really liked the Allman Brothers, and we were both dorks and nerds about the music. So we were always swapping guitar pedals and amps and bullshitting about tone. Um, but I remember there was a band that was in Nashville at the time. It was called Brothers and Sisters. That was started by another good buddy of mine, Drew Smithers, from Marcus King's band. Um, and Drew had played with these guys for a little bit. They did Allman Brothers stuff, and Drew was kind of starting to back off of it, and I think some of the other guys were starting to back off of it too. But their bass player Casey Conway was still really gung ho on wanting to keep playing. Um, and I don't know much about the correspondence on how Casey and Connor got together, but I remember Connor called me up one day and said, "Hey man, listen, here's the deal. Um, I've gotten all of these guys together, and where we're thinking about just kind of putting this together as a fun way to just get some yayas out when we're not out playing with other bands, and just play music that we all love. And would you want to do it?" And I told him, "Hell yeah, man! It sounds like a plan. Let's just put some gigs together. That way, when you're not touring with Waker, we can play something, make a little bit of extra money, and have some fun." And over the past 5 years, it has grown and has started taking up a lot more time than we thought it would. But it's been a beautiful thing.
Yeah, there's just such a demand for that music and people enjoy it live and you guys are talented and like I was saying, I'm sure able to capture the spirit of those songs and what that band, is all about. What are the kind of gigs, the primary types of or probably all kinds of gigs. Is it bar gigs, college parties, theater? Like what kind of
We do
venues and
a
gigs do you get?
we do a lot of performing arts center shows. We've we started off doing our bars and fair share of pubs and stuff like that, as any band would. But recently, we've been doing a lot of small theaters and cool little performing arts centers. It's been really fun and really rewarding. I think even back to what you said, you kind of hit at the core of what we're kind of aiming at with it. It's you know we all love this music, and when we started the band, we had no idea that we would get to play it as much as we do. But I think what it's really about at the end of the day is, there's so much love out there and so much respect to be given for this music. And if anything, we just want to do exactly that with it. We want to continue it forward. We want to show it to a new generation of people that didn't get to hear the Allman Brothers, or you didn't get to experience that live atmosphere. Um, because at the end of the day, that music deserves it. It's legendary, and it's got so much room to improvise on and grow and be so many different things while still paying homage to it. So
Right,
um,
it allows you to be yourselves even, I feel like, I would guess.
there's room for it in there. It's and I really admire, and I think we all do really admire, a band like Joe Russo's Almost Dead, what he does with the Grateful Dead's music, he, does such a great job of paying respect and homage and giving all of that respect and homage and everything that he plays with his band. But at the same time, they keep that music new and they keep it fresh and they bring it to fresh audiences. And, you know, at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
Very cool. So well said. Is it better playing in theaters than bars? Is it for all the obvious reasons? Is people are there to see you? People are maybe less drunk. It's more people, better sound. You're on a big stage. Like, is it better in theaters? Is that true?
I I mean, I wouldn't even say, less drunk people or anything like that. There's pros and cons to both. I feel like I'd almost rather play in a loud biker bar because the energy from the crowd is going to be amazing, versus some of these performing arts centers where a lot of folks will sit down. But, it's, I don't think there's such thing as a bad audience. I think it's just different from each venue. Some of these towns, in each of these performing arts centers, everybody does sit down. That's the nature of that atmosphere. And, sometimes the energy is great and sometimes the energy is super quiet, but you've just kind of got to play to the room. Um, but I don't know. In answer to your question, it'd vary. I'll take a loud
Yeah,
biker bar one night.
depends. It depends, is I guess is the answer, and it depends a lot on the people. It sounds like as well.
End of the line
Um,
shows never get too rowdy.
not yet. We'll see. Like you said, you guys are growing.
There's still
Um,
time.
so did you get an opportunity to play with Derek recently? Did I see that correctly at Chank's Memorial?
I did.
Oh yeah, tell me about Chank and tell me about how that all came together and I want to hear about that stuff.
Man, so it's kind of a crazy story. So growing up in Macon, I used to volunteer at the Big House Museum a good bit here in town, and I became really good friends with the curator Richard Brent. Um, and we've been friends just all throughout me growing up and moving to Nashville and coming back and forth. Um, and knowing Richard, Chank was always never too far away. And I think the first time I ever met Chank, I was 14 years old, 15 years old. We did this festival outside in Central City Park every year called Skydog, for Dwayne Allman's birthday. It's a charity event where we'd raise canned goods for the homeless. And we'd play Allman Brothers music all day, just like the brothers did for free in the park. And I remember Richard and Chank coming out there one day, and Chank just being super supportive of everybody in the band. We had a band called the Young Brothers at the time with a bunch of talented local musicians. Another guitar player named Dustin McCook, who's phenomenal. You absolutely need to check him out. But Chank was always super kind and so supportive of us. Anytime we'd get off stage, he would come right up to us and go, "Man, you guys did incredible. You guys, taking me back. Y'all keep playing." He always pushed us. And that was something that meant more to us as kids than I think we'll ever be able to describe or pay back for.
That's
Um,
really cool to hear.
because he
That
was
w
he was a legend. We would see him, we would see him go out on the road with Greg and hear that he'd be out with Greg, and then it'd be Thanksgiving and we all be playing this little festival in the park, and Chank would show up and listen, and that was just so cool to us. But fast forward, I guess, till about 5 or 6 years ago, when Greg passed. They were putting together a memorial service for Greg at the Big House Museum. It was going to be a private thing, just for all the family members and people coming from the procession. And they wanted to put a band together, of house musicians, just people that knew the music but could be kind of pulled in and plucked and traded out as people started to file in and people wanted to get up and play, because we assumed it was going to turn into an all-out jam session, which it did. Um, and I remember at that point, and this is what Richard tells me, but they were trying to put together that event. And Richard asked Chank, he said, who should we get for music? Do you have anybody? And Chank said, "Why don't you give those young boys from the park a call? Why don't you give them a call and see if they want to come do it?" And Richard called me and said, "Hey, Chank's asked if you want to put together the band to play, this reception. Will you do it?" And I said, "Yeah." And I immediately called up Dustin McCook, the guitarist I was telling you about, and we put together the set. And I was on tour in New York at the time. I flew home to do it, and we played the whole afternoon. Everybody had gotten up. It was a big thing, um, bigger than any of us could have ever imagined. Just the people that we saw there, and I remember talking to Chank afterwards and just saying, "Thank you for asking us to do this. This means the world." And he said, "Man, I appreciate it. You know, y'all did him right." And that
Wow.
was such a weird moment for, talking to him, hearing that when he passed, I I didn't know if we were going to get asked to play. I didn't know if we were going to put anything together. I didn't know there was a celebration coming. Um, but I guess maybe about a month and a half afterwards, I got the call from Richard, and he said, "Hey, um, we're putting together a celebration of life for Chank. Um, can you do it again?" And I said, "Yeah, we'll put the band together." Um, so we got the band together, and Richard then reached out and said, "Derek and Susan are coming, and they are probably going to want to get up and play a little bit. Just be ready, And we were like, "Yeah, for sure. Sure. Maybe not. You never know." And they showed up day of and were super sweet. It was such a cool experience. Um, they did "Smoke Ring Halo," the old Wood Brothers song for Chank, which I thought was
Mhm.
really fitting. It's a beautiful thing. And then we got up and did probably about a 60-minute set. And Susan got up and sang "Stormy Monday," and Derek sat in on Liz Reed. And
Wow.
it was a cool send off for
So
our friend.
what cool stuff all around. And I'm also sorry for your loss. I mean, this of a friend. I mean, that's not fun thing to deal with at all. So I wanted to definitely, say that as well to you.
Well, thank you. He meant a lot to a lot of people, and I, I'm just, I count us lucky. I count, the Young Brothers, the band, lucky that he listened, that he liked what we did. That meant the world to us. It meant more than he'll ever know.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, what an ultimate compliment to give you. And you almost like brushed over it in a sense, but it was really an ultimate compliment when you guys first were playing at the park, and or early on, and he said to you, "Y'all bringing me back." Like, is there a bigger compliment than that? And I guess you did kind of receive a almost bigger, as big compliment being asked to play at what was Gregg's memorial at the big house as well. Were Derek and Susan there as well? I mean, I can imagine who.
They were. I don't think they ended up being able to stay for the reception service. I think there was something that ended up happening and they had to go. But I did get to see him for a split second. It's funny. There's a terrible picture of me. I had just gotten off of the plane and I'd look like somebody has hit me over the head with a book. And Susan and Derek have walked up to say hello, and I look so out of it. But
And then they
I
know you
think
too, they
everybody was
reckon.
having a day that day.
Yeah, that's true. It's
It
yeah,
was a hard day for
extenuating
everybody.
circumstance. Yeah, I bet, but really it must have been a who's who of the Allman Brothers world at, down in Macon and at this memorial and service, even if it was a small gathering, I'm sure it was quite a list of people who were there.
Greg's was a little bit more. It was a little bit louder. I think there was a word had kind of gotten out, and there was kind of a street party that happened, and there was a really beautiful moment, man, from Greg's, where I remember Devin had just gotten there, and we had all kind of been jamming throughout the day, but we had started playing Love Light, um, and Valor Trucks was on stage playing guitar. Barry Oakley Jr. was playing bass. Oh, let's see. It was Dwayne Betts was playing. I already said Dwayne Betts. Dwayne Betts was playing guitar. Oakley on bass. Trucks on guitar. And then Devin Allman walked up. And I remember I took my guitar off and I handed it to Devin to play Love Light. And I got off stage and I turned around and I walked and I looked and I was like, oh my God, that's the first time an Allman, a Betts, an Oakley, and a Trucks have all been on stage together since I can remember. And that was it was a weird moment of like, oh my gosh, wow, that's history.
Did anyone else pick up on that?
I I think there was a little bit of it in the air, but then, the Allman Betts band happened a few months, 6 to 7 months later, I think, so it was kind of like "Oh, okay." But it was a weird moment. It was kinda like, "Okay, wow, that was the first time they'd all played together."
Very cool moments, very special stuff, and some even though they're surrounding some sad events, but like personally for you, just to be a part of that and just like I don't know, it's just special. I keep using that word, but I don't know what else to say.
I've struggled to find it. It's just to be a fly on the wall has been such I don't know how I've been this lucky or this blessed, but just getting to be witness to some of these crazy musical moments, I'll never be able to give enough thanks.
So cool, such cool stuff all around. I hope you're able to make it to the Ryman. If not, I hope you have great gigs on the road with your band. What else? Anything else we need to cover or talk about? I know you do some. You're an audio engineer as well. You can tell me about that if you want, or anything else you're working on. What's going on these days?
Nothing really new in the pipeline engineering wise. I don't get to do as much engineering as I'd like to anymore, just kind of touring with End of the Line. We've got a couple of shows lining up, probably about 6 or 7 in January. That are gonna start coming up. Um, on the engineering end, though, something cool that we're starting to do, our production manager Chase, who also plays drums for End of the Line, guy named Chase Bader. We're starting to release some of our live shows every time we play. So each time that we play a venue now, we've actually gotten the ability to record and live stream each of our shows as the show progresses. So the night after the show, we'll be releasing live soundboard audio of each of our performances, so you can kind of see the set list evolve and change each night, and catch all the different jams. So
Very cool.
not the engineering that I'm used to, but we're putting out some stuff, which is fun.
I always appreciate any live recordings that I get from TTB or ABB Music, whatever's out there. I just tend to eat it all up for sure. Where can people find and follow you and your bands? And I'll go ahead and plug and promote whatever you want. I'll give you the floor to do that.
No, for sure. So you can find us at Allman Bros Tribute on Instagram. That's BROS. We're Into the Line on Facebook. You can also find me on Instagram at Gorman Electric, um, or Adam Gorman on Facebook. So I'm around. Give us a follow, and
Very
check out our shows on YouTube as well. We're on YouTube as End of the Line Allman Bros Tribute.
very good stuff all around. Any other TTB Derek Susan anecdotes before I let you go on with the rest of your evening?
Oh man, any more antidotes?
Antidotes or anecdotes or funny stories or moments or anything. I just figured,
Funny stories. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I have any funny I don't know if I have any funny Derek and Susan stories. I've got some funny Allman Brothers stories, but I don't know if I have any funny Derek and Susan stories.
I'll take one more funny Allman Brothers story or something, worth sharing, worth listening to.
Let's see, a funny Allman Brothers story. Okay. Okay, here's a good one. So this was I can say I think the most starstruck I've ever been on stage. Was when we were playing that memorial service. I remember there was a moment we were all playing. I look over at Dustin, who was playing guitar, and then I look out about 10 feet in front of me, and there's a woman who's extremely tall, and she's got jet black hair. It's
I
about
think
down to
I know
her
who
waist.
this is.
And she's standing. She's super slender, and she's just looking at me like this. And I went, "Oh my God, that's Cher." Cher is standing 10 feet in front of me, watching me play guitar. I'm about to pass out. So I think that might be That might be my funny Allman Brothers story there. That's the most starstruck I've ever been on stage, was
Uh,
looking out and going, "Oh my god, Cher is staring right at me."
She didn't get up and sing with you though.
No, she did not. Cher did not sing that night.
She Oh yeah, that was my next question.
No vocals from her that night. Bonnie Bramlett got up and sang, but no Cher.
Very good stuff though, for sure. Even though it was a sad event, but just such it's music history and such special music events happening, you know, in the context of a sad event, but it's still cool for people to get together and play and celebrate the live and the lives of Gregg and Chank and these people. Such a tight knit, cool community to be a part of, and just for me to be a fly on the wall in another room in another maybe in a connected universe. I appreciate that, and as I do your time and the stories as well, and I definitely look forward to digging into more of your music. You guys ever on the West Coast? I'm guessing not.
We're actually making our way out there. We're gonna be in Modesto, California in November.
Oh yeah, I did see that on your website. I should have said you guys gonna be in Southern California anytime
One of
soon.
these days, we're trying to make it out there, but you absolutely keep an eye out for tour dates. We're posting new stuff all the time, so it's coming.
Very cool. I appreciate it. Thanks again, Adam, and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you too. You have a great evening. Take care.
You too. Later.
Later.
So there you go. Episode 94 with Adam Gorman. Thanks again to him for the time and for the stories. I really appreciate it. Of course, this show centers around TTB, but it's been a privilege for me to continue to also dive deeper and deeper into all things Allman Brothers. Anyway, hope everyone is doing okay out there. Please check out Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram. That's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. I'm at Adam Choyden on Instagram and Twitter. TedeschiTrucksBand.com is their official site. My other podcast is at People We Love Podcast or People We Love Podcast.com. TheEditedMovie.com is my short film. I think that's about all I got for today. Thank you again for listening. More stuff coming soon. Later.